It started with a simple favor. A quick ride across town for my best friend's younger brother. But what he was really carrying, that nearly got us killed. We uncovered something that powerful people wanted to keep buried. And trust me, they were ready to do anything to silence us. It was one of those laid-back Saturdays in early spring, when the sun hangs just right in the sky and everything feels calm, too calm, almost. I had just brewed myself a fresh cup of coffee, planning to spend the afternoon flipping through a new thriller I'd picked up from the used bookstore downtown. When my phone buzzed. Ethan Tyler's brother. I blinked. Ethan? I hadn't seen his name pop up in a while. He was the younger brother of my best friend, Tyler. Back in high school, Ethan was just the scrappy kid trying to tag along. He was maybe 6 years younger than us, always running behind, trying to prove he could keep up. Now he had to be, 21? Maybe 22? Curious, I opened the text. Hey, I know it's random, but can you give me a ride? Kinda urgent. I'll explain. No emoji, no greeting, just a short, clipped message. That wasn't like Ethan. I waited a second before replying. Where to? Almost immediately, he responded. Over near the old train yard, off Harrison Avenue. I'll explain when you get here. Please. I sat back. The old train yard? That place was basically abandoned, graffiti covered, rusting tracks, and a few dusty storage buildings no one used anymore. It wasn't exactly a place you hung out in the middle of the day unless you were looking for trouble, or running from it. Still, it wasn't like Ethan to reach out unless he really needed something. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my keys, tossed on a hoodie, and headed out. The drive across town didn't take long. It was one of those crisp days where the wind has a bite to it, and you get the sense something's coming. I pulled off Harrison, down a cracked road lined with chain-link fences and broken street lamps, and finally spotted him, leaning against a faded stop sign like he was trying not to be noticed. He looked older than I remembered, taller, a bit rough around the edges, with a dark baseball cap pulled low over his face. But his eyes were anxious. He climbed into the passenger seat with a muttered, "Thanks for coming, man." "No problem," I said, giving him a quick once-over. "You okay? You look like hell." He gave a nervous laugh. "Yeah, been a long day." I pulled away from the curb. "So, what's going on?" He hesitated, chewing on his thumbnail, then finally said, "Do you remember Mike Kramer?" I racked my brain. Mike? The guy who ran that auto repair shop on Eastwood? The one your brother used to work for? "Yeah," Ethan said. "I've been working with him part-time. Just under the table stuff. Some runs, deliveries, that kind of thing." "Uh-huh," I said slowly. "Well, last night, he asked me to drop something off for him. Said it was a quick run. Just a bag to some guy on the south side. Nothing unusual. I've done it before." "And?" I asked, already feeling my stomach twist. "Well," he exhaled, "when I got there, the guy freaked out. Said it wasn't what he expected. Started accusing me of screwing him over. Then he said some messed up stuff. Said if I didn't get out of there in 5 seconds, someone was gonna take care of me." I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. "What was in the bag?" He didn't answer. I glanced over. "Ethan, what was in the bag?" He motioned down to the backpack sitting at his feet. I didn't open it. I didn't think I had to. But after that guy went ballistic, I grabbed it and ran. I haven't gone home. I don't know who's looking for me. I panicked. I didn't know who else to call. The situation was already spinning in my head. I pulled into a quiet parking lot behind a strip mall. It was empty except for an old minivan and a few scattered shopping carts. "We're opening it," I said. He looked nervous. "You sure?" "No, but we need to know." He reached down, unzipped the backpack, and pulled it open. I stared at the contents. Small, rectangular plastic-wrapped bricks. No labels. Just a couple of bundles that looked expensive. And illegal. Jesus, I whispered. Yeah, he muttered. I didn't sign up for this. I turned to face him. You didn't know? He shook his head. I swear, I thought it was parts. Or maybe some cash. But this? I stared at the bag again. Do you know how deep Kramer is in? Not really, he said. I figured he was a little shady, but I didn't ask questions. It paid under the table, and I needed the money. I leaned back. Ethan, this isn't a traffic ticket. This is felony territory. I know, he said. That's why I came to you. I didn't know what else to do. Just then, something caught my eye in the rearview mirror. A black SUV had turned slowly into the lot. It didn't park, didn't pass by, it just lingered. I nudged Ethan. Don't look. But I think we're being watched. He went pale. We need to go. Now. I slipped the car into gear and pulled out of the parking lot without signaling. Keeping my eyes locked on the side mirrors. The black SUV didn't move at first. But just as we rounded the corner, it rolled forward, slow and deliberate. My heart picked up speed. They're following us, I said. Ethan turned halfway in his seat. Oh man, I didn't think they'd find me this fast. Do you even know who they are? No, I swear I don't. I didn't get any names. Just some guy with a buzz cut and a tattoo on his neck. Looked ex-military or something. I took a sharp left and merged onto the main road. I didn't want to head home. That was the first place anyone would think to look, but I also couldn't drive aimlessly for long. Gas was low, and the more time we spent on the road, the more likely we'd draw attention. I'm taking us somewhere we can lay low, I said. You still talk to Donnie? Ethan blinked. Donnie McKenna? Yeah, her dad owns that storage lot out by Pine Ridge. She mentioned once that they've got a few empty units with outlets and a busted camera system. I crashed there during finals one year. Ethan nodded slowly. You think she'll help? I don't know, I said, already dialing her number. But we don't have a better option. She answered on the second ring. Donnie? It's Alex. I need a favor. It's kind of urgent. 20 minutes later, we pulled off a rural two-lane road into a gravel driveway surrounded by overgrown grass and rusting storage units. The sky was starting to gray, clouds rolling in from the west. Donnie was already there, sitting on the back of her old Jeep Cherokee. Arms crossed. What the hell did you get into? She asked as we stepped out. It's not me, I said. It's Ethan. He gave a sheepish wave. I'll pretend I didn't hear anything, she said, grabbing the padlock on Unit 24. You've got until tomorrow morning. My dad does a sweep every Sunday. Appreciate it, I said. We won't trash the place. You better not, she said, tossing me the key. And Alex, if you get arrested, I'm not bailing you out. Again, I smiled grimly. Fair enough. We rolled the metal door open and stepped inside. The air was stale, the floor dusty, but it was dry and private. A single outlet worked near the back wall, and there was even a folding chair leaning against a stack of old boxes. Ethan sat down heavily, burying his face in his hands. This is insane. This is like something out of a movie. It's real life, man, I said, dropping the backpack onto the concrete. And we need a plan. He looked up. Like what? Go to the cops? Turn in Kramer? They'll think I'm involved. Because technically, you are, I said. Even if you didn't know what you were carrying, you were still moving it. Ethan swore under his breath. I just needed extra cash. College was killing me, and my hours at the coffee shop got cut. Kramer said it was nothing. He lied. I believe you, I said. But that doesn't make this go away. We sat in silence for a long while. Outside, the wind began to pick up. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. The whole place felt like it was sitting just outside the world. Like time had slowed down inside those concrete walls. I pulled out my phone and opened a browser window. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. "Looking up what happens if we turn this in anonymously. If we drop the drugs at a precinct without getting involved." He frowned. "Would that work?" "Depends. Some departments just take it. Others trace it. Either way, it might stir the pot. But if they trace it back to Kramer, they'll come for me," he finished. "Exactly." Ethan leaned forward. "There's one more thing." I raised an eyebrow. "There's always one more thing. When I got the bag last night, Kramer gave me a phone. A burner. Said the client would call when I got there." My jaw clenched. "Where's the phone now?" He pulled it from his hoodie pocket. "It's off. Hasn't rung since I bailed." I grabbed it, popped the back cover, and pulled the battery. "Let's keep it that way." Hours passed. We took turns napping, switching off who kept watch. At one point, Ethan opened up about the pressure he'd been feeling: money, school, trying to live up to his brother's reputation. Tyler was a solid guy, well respected, successful. Ethan always felt like he was stuck in his shadow. "You know," I said, "Tyler would want to help. He'd probably be mad at first, but he wouldn't leave you hanging." "Yeah," Ethan said, "but I didn't want to drag him down with me." Just then, we heard tires on gravel. Both of us froze. I peeked out the slit between the metal door and the frame. A black SUV had pulled up just a few units down. No headlights. No sound. Just sitting there. They found us. I waved Ethan back, motioned for silence. We slid behind a stack of boxes and kept low. Minutes passed. Then footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. They stopped in front of Unit 24. The handle jiggled. I held my breath, heart pounding so loud I was sure they'd hear it. A phone rang. Not Ethan's burner. Mine. I fumbled in my pocket and silenced it, but it was too late. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silence. A pause. Then a voice. "You've got what belongs to us. You've got one chance to open the door." I looked at Ethan. He was white as a ghost. There was no way out. Not through the front. Not through the walls. But there was one possibility. I whispered, "Grab the bag. And follow me." We crept to the rear wall, where a vent shaft opened near the floor. I yanked the cover off, praying it wasn't bolted tight. It gave, just big enough for Ethan to crawl through. It led behind the units, toward the woods. "I'll hold them off. Go. I'm not leaving you," he whispered. "Ethan, go. Now." He hesitated, then ducked through the vent, dragging the backpack with him. I turned back just as the lock snapped. The door began to rise. I stood up. Alone. The metal storage door screeched as it rolled open, the sound grinding through the air like a warning. I didn't move. My hands were raised slightly, my face calm, trying to hide the thudding in my chest. Two men stepped into the unit, one tall and broad with dark sunglasses despite the overcast sky. The other shorter, older, with a scar across his cheek. Neither looked like they were here to negotiate. The tall one spoke first. "Where's the bag?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "I'm not gonna ask again." My eyes flicked toward the open vent behind the stack of boxes, now hidden in shadow. "I don't have it." Scarface tilted his head, his voice like gravel. "That's funny. Our guy saw you leave with it earlier today. So you've been following us." "We've been patient," the tall one said. "But now? We're out of patience." I took a step back, hands still up. "You're making a mistake. I'm not the guy you want. I was just giving a kid a ride. I didn't know what was in the bag until an hour ago." Scarface smiled coldly. "You know now. That makes you responsible." Before I could react, The tall one lunged forward, grabbing my hoodie and slamming me against the wall. Pain shot up my spine, but I didn't cry out. I stared into his face. "You've got 30 seconds, he hissed. "Either we get what's ours, or you find out what a bad day really feels like." From the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker, movement at the back of the lot. A shape ducking behind one of the other units. Ethan was still close. I had to buy him time. "You're wasting it," I said through clenched teeth. "Even if I told you where he went, you wouldn't catch him." Scarface raised a walkie. "He's stalling." The tall guy twisted my arm. "Then let's speed it up." They dragged me out of the unit and toward the SUV. The lot was quiet, eerily so. Danny's Jeep was gone. No one else in sight. They shoved me into the back seat. I barely had time to glance around before we were moving, tires crunching over gravel. Scarface turned in the passenger seat to face me. "Where's the drop spot?" "What drop spot? Don't play dumb," he snapped. "Kid had a phone. That phone was supposed to ring. When it didn't, we checked the backup tracker. We know you two bailed." "Tracker?" I said. "That phone wasn't even on." "It doesn't need to be," Scarface said. "Modern toys are smarter than you." I clenched my jaw. This was getting worse by the second. "Look," I said, "I don't know who you work for, but this is a lot of heat over one bag. What's so important in it?" They didn't answer, which told me everything. It wasn't just drugs. Meanwhile, back at the lot, Ethan crouched behind Unit 30, his breathing shallow. He could barely hear through the pounding in his ears. He clutched the backpack tight, torn between running and returning. He'd seen the men, seen the SUV, and worst of all, he'd seen me get shoved into the backseat. He pulled out his phone. One bar, no signal, no way to call Tyler, no way to call the cops. He stared down at the bag, at the bricks inside, then at the burner phone. He reached into the side pocket and pulled out a small slip of paper that had been tucked between the plastic wrap and the fabric. Coordinates. Just a series of numbers written in sharp, deliberate handwriting. He Googled them. It pulled up a location about 40 minutes outside of town. A tiny warehouse near the edge of a state highway, just off the grid. Surrounded by forest. A drop spot? Ethan hesitated, then zipped the bag shut. In the SUV, Scarface answered a call. He grunted a few words, then hung up. His face turned grim. "He's on the move." "Where?" the driver asked. "Highway 39. Headed east." I sat up. "How do you know that?" Scarface looked at me, and for the first time, I saw real annoyance. "You think we don't plan for this stuff? We planted a second tracker. In the bag." I bit the inside of my cheek. "So they'd been watching longer than we realized." We sped onto the highway, tires squealing. The city faded behind us, replaced by open road and pine trees. As we drove, I ran through every possible outcome. None of them were good. Ethan was walking into something we didn't understand. And now, so was I. Ethan reached the edge of the warehouse site just before sunset. The light bathed the structure in gold and orange, but the place itself looked dead. Boards over the windows, dust coating the lot. No sound but the wind and a few crows circling overhead. He hid the bag behind a tree and scouted the building. Nothing moved. No cameras. No guards. He was just about to turn back when a black sports car pulled up from the other side. Sleek. Clean. Quiet. A man stepped out. Suit. Shaved head. Calm. Controlled. He looked around, then leaned against the car and pulled out a cigarette. Ethan stepped from the woods. "Looking for this?" he asked, lifting the backpack. The man raised an eyebrow. "You must be the delivery boy." Ethan walked slowly across the lot, keeping the bag close. "I'm not. Not really. But I think I've got something you want." The man smiled. "You're braver than you look." Ethan set the bag down a few feet away. Before you grab it, I want something. The man's eyes narrowed. You're negotiating? Kind of. My friend, Alex, he was taken. I think by your people. You get him back to me, and I'll walk away. You get the bag. No cops. No questions. The man walked closer, cool as ice. You're smart, he said. But you don't understand the game you're in. That bag? That's not street-level stuff. That's federal-level evidence. And the people chasing you? They're not just dealers. Ethan's heart pounded. Then who are they? Cleanup crew. They make things disappear when deals go sideways. Ethan paled. So Alex, still alive, the man said. For now. Then he whistled once. From the woods, another figure stepped out. Alex, shaken, bruised, but standing. Let him go, the man said to the woods. We've got what we need. I stumbled forward, catching Ethan's eye. You okay? He asked. Better now, I said. You pulled this off? Not exactly. I improvised. The man picked up the bag and tossed it in his trunk. You've both bought yourself about 24 hours before someone else notices this mess. I'd use that time wisely. Then he drove off, tires silent against the dust. We stood in the silence, stunned. The warehouse lot fell into silence after the black sports car disappeared down the gravel road, taking the backpack, and everything it represented, with it. Ethan and I stood there, neither of us speaking for a moment. He looked pale but solid, his jaw tight. I was sore and shaken, but seeing him safe gave me something to hold onto. You good? I asked, voice low. Ethan nodded. Yeah, I think. You? I gave a weak smile. Been better. We started walking, making our way toward the tree line where he'd left his bike stashed. The sun was disappearing behind the hills, casting long shadows that made the woods feel like something out of a thriller novel. And maybe it was. Maybe we were inside one now. As we reached the edge of the lot, Ethan glanced back. You believe that guy? The one in the suit? I shrugged. He knew too much to be bluffing. And if what he said was true, that this was more than drugs. Ethan nodded. Then we're in way over our heads. We got on the bike, Ethan pedaling, me riding awkwardly on the rear rack, and we made our way toward the nearest gas station. About 10 miles of country road later, we reached a small town with one blinking stoplight and a 24-hour diner. The kind of place that didn't ask questions. We locked the bike behind the building and went inside. The waitress, gray-haired, gum-popping, name tag that said Cheryl, barely looked up as she handed us menus. Kitchen's open, till 11, she said. Coffee's fresh. Don't try anything weird. Wouldn't dream of it, I muttered. Ethan ordered a grilled cheese. I went with a burger. Neither of us was very hungry, but after the day we'd had, food was necessary. Halfway through the meal, Ethan leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. Alex, what do we do now? I sipped my coffee. We figure out who we're really dealing with. That guy in the suit knew about the bag, the drop location, and the cleanup crew chasing us. That means this goes deeper than a garage owner moving drugs. You think Mike Kramer's just a middleman? I nodded. Feels like it. Which means he might not even know what he was transporting. Ethan leaned back, processing. We need to talk to him. Yeah, but carefully. If he's scared, he might lash out. If he's in on it, he might try to silence us. Cheryl dropped the check on the table with a thud. Y'all look like you've seen a ghost, she said. Something like that, I muttered. She winked. Well, tell him he still owes me a tip. Ethan and I exchanged a confused glance. Who? I asked. The guy that just left, she said. Came in, sat at the counter, didn't order nothing. Just watched you two the whole time. Weird vibe. Sunglasses indoors. Said he was from the health department. Our blood turned cold. Which way did he go? I asked, heart pounding again. She pointed toward the back lot. Took off like a bat out of hell about 2 minutes ago. Didn't like me staring, I guess. I threw some cash on the table and we bolted. Outside, the parking lot was empty. No cars. No sign of movement. Ethan cursed under his breath. They're still following us. I looked around. No cameras, no witnesses. We can't stay in one place too long, I said. Let's keep moving. We took a city bus heading west, changed twice, and finally arrived back near my apartment after midnight. The place looked quiet, but I checked every window and street lamp before unlocking the door. Inside, I locked the bolt and pulled the curtains shut. Then I turned to Ethan. Tomorrow, we find Kramer. The next morning, we borrowed my neighbor's old pickup truck, a clunky red Ford with a busted muffler and zero subtlety, and drove to Eastwood, where Kramer's garage sat tucked between a pawn shop and a liquor store. The place was open, but only one car was on the lift. Kramer himself stood under the hood, wiping grease from his hands. He looked up as we walked in, eyes narrowing. Well, he said. Didn't expect to see you two again. Ethan stiffened beside me. We need to talk, I said. Kramer eyed us. Talk, huh? About what? You know what, Ethan said. Kramer sighed and wiped his hands on a rag. Come with me. He led us into the back room, an office cluttered with paperwork, old calendars, and a mini fridge that buzzed louder than a chainsaw. Kramer shut the door behind us and turned, face suddenly serious. You got followed here? No, I said. Not yet. Good. Because if you had, we'd all be dead. Ethan stepped forward. What the hell did you get me into, Mike? Kramer rubbed his eyes. I didn't want to. You were just supposed to be a runner. A clean face. That's all. For what? I snapped. What was in the bag? Kramer hesitated. Military-grade surveillance chips, he said. Custom. Untraceable. The kind that don't show up on scans. Ethan's mouth dropped open. What? I thought it was drugs. Everyone thinks that, Kramer muttered. It's easier that way. I leaned on the desk. Who are you moving this stuff for? He looked at us, then at the door, and lowered his voice. I don't know their real names. They pay in cash. Always the same woman who picks up the bag, black coat, red nails, tinted windows. You never look too long. You just deliver and walk away. And what happens when something goes wrong? Ethan asked. Kramer's face darkened. People disappear. I took a step back. So what do they want now? Kramer met my eyes. They think you still have something. And they're not going to stop until they're sure you don't. That night, Ethan and I didn't sleep. We rotated watches, listening to every creak in the hallway, every car that passed outside. By morning, we had a plan. We'd lure the cleanup crew into the open, with a fake drop. We created a decoy bag, filled with old tech parts and a fake tracking chip. Then we texted the burner phone from an anonymous app, sending coordinates to a different warehouse across town. A dead end. We parked a block away and waited. At 2:00 p.m., 2 black cars pulled up. 4 men got out, armed. They searched the lot. Nothing. One of them answered a call. He looked furious. They sped off again, but not before we caught the plate numbers. We sent them, anonymously, to a friend of mine in the local news. The kind of guy who loved conspiracy stories. By sunset, there was a blog post online about suspicious black SUVs visiting abandoned sites across the city. Just enough attention to make the crew go underground. Just enough to give us a window to breathe. The next 48 hours passed in a haze of paranoia. Ethan and I stayed off the grid. No phones, no social media, no familiar places. We bounced between cheap motels and borrowed couches, avoiding any location where someone might recognize us. But something changed after that blog post went live. No more black SUVs. No more strange phone calls. No knocks on the door at 3 a.m. The silence, though, didn't feel like safety. It felt like retreat. And that was worse. Maybe they're regrouping, Ethan said, pacing the length of the tiny motel room. Or maybe, I said, they're waiting for us to make the next move. He sat down on the edge of the bed. I'm so tired of running. I leaned against the wall. Then we stop running. He looked up. What do you mean? I mean we fight back. Ethan raised an eyebrow. We're not exactly Navy SEALs, man. No, I said, but we don't have to be. We've got something they don't. Which is? I reached into my bag and pulled out a small flash drive. The tracker, I said. The one you found in the backpack. We'd removed it days earlier and plugged it into my old laptop. It took some work, some help from a friend who owed me a favor, but we finally decrypted the data inside. It wasn't just GPS logs. It was communications, schedules, names, shipment locations. Someone had slipped up, and we had the blueprint. The next morning, we drove 2 hours south to a city where nobody knew us. We found a public library and used their computers to upload the contents of the drive to 3 different anonymous drop sites online. We set up automated emails, one to a trusted reporter, one to a cyber crimes task force, and one to a private defense watchdog group. Each would receive the data if something happened to us. Insurance. Then we waited. It didn't take long. At 9:42 a.m., my email pinged. Subject line, you talk, you vanish. Attached was a single image, my apartment door. Taken from the street. A threat. Ethan stared at the screen. They know we're still alive. They know more than that, I said. They're watching again. We needed a final play. One that would take us out of their crosshairs for good. I called in my last favor. Reggie, a friend from college, now worked at a private investigations firm in D.C. He specialized in corporate security and shady defense contractors. When I told him what we had, his voice dropped low. You need to come to D.C. He said. Now. We're being watched, I said. Then come quiet. I'll handle the rest. We boarded a Greyhound bus the next night, wearing hats, fake glasses, and thrift store hoodies. We slept in shifts, always checking who was around us. By the time we arrived in D.C., the sun was rising behind the Capitol. Reggie met us at the station in a nondescript sedan. He looked older than I remembered, gray at the temples, a tired face, but sharp as ever. He didn't talk much during the ride. Just drove us to a secure location and locked the doors behind us. Then he laid it out. This is bigger than your friend Kramer, Reggie said. This is tied to a private military contractor operating outside U.S. law. They've been using small-town repair shops and warehouses to quietly move surveillance tech to offshore buyers. Mostly through third-party mules. Like me, Ethan said bitterly. Reggie nodded. Exactly like you. He showed us documents, contracts, money trails, cover stories. Everything matched the data on the flash drive. You stumbled onto something they've spent years covering up, he continued. They didn't kill you because the bag went missing. They didn't kill you because you ran. They didn't kill you because they weren't sure how much you knew. He turned to us. But now? They know you know. We spent the next week under federal protection. The DOJ got involved, thanks to Reggie's connections. News outlets began to whisper about corruption, shell companies, and illicit surveillance hardware. A congressional committee was formed. No names were revealed publicly, but people behind the scenes started disappearing. Kramer's shop was burned to the ground in what was ruled an electrical fire. He vanished. The man with the scar? Gone. The woman with the red nails? Never seen again. And the man in the suit? Still out there. But the story was out now. And that was the difference. 2 months later, Ethan went back to college. He kept his head down, stayed out of trouble, and worked at the library instead of chasing shady side gigs. We still talked. A lot. We'd both changed. Some scars don't show up on skin. I went back to my life, but nothing felt quite the same. Sometimes I still glance over my shoulder. Sometimes I check the locks twice. But I sleep better knowing we did the right thing. That we didn't back down. That we made noise where others would have gone quiet. And every so often, when I pass by a certain abandoned train yard or see a kid in a hoodie waiting by the curb, I think back to that day. To a simple text message. Hey, can I ask for a huge favor? And I wonder how close we came to disappearing. And how quickly life can shift. All because my friend's younger brother asked me for a ride. Sometimes, one favor leads you into a world you never imagined. I thought I was just giving someone a ride, but I ended up in a conspiracy that reached higher than I ever dreamed. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done in my place? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More real-life thriller stories coming soon, only on this channel.